Hello, Furality Aqua. I hope you're all enjoying the convention so far. I hope you've seen the elusive duckfish that's been roaming around. My name is Gillboy.
And I'm Reklaymer, also just known as Clay.
Yeah. Welcome to the panel. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sure many of you are interested in this topic. And Clay and I are happy to share with you what we know.
That's right, and I'm more than happy to impart my knowledge to you, Furality, from my 7 years of experience.
Yeah. I also happen to be a 3D artist as well, as some of you may know, and I have around 9 years of experience. And together, I'm sure we'll make an excellent team to ensure all of you leave today with some very important knowledge.
I'm a bee.
And I'm a fish. So let's get right into it. Welcome to our panel on how to Quest-ify your assets. Oh, I went too far. Ah, there we go. All right.
I would like to preface that there are many ways to optimize an asset or a character. And there may not be an objectively correct way of achieving the goal. We are just offering advice from our own experience.
Yeah, indeed. And keep in mind that not all of these methods we will be covering today will work perfectly on any specific asset based on how you made it. You may need to mess around with it a bit to get your desired results. Always be willing to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, we encourage you to experiment to find what works best for you.
Yes, indeed.
And with that, we'll move straight into our first topic, automatic methods using the CATS Blender plugin.
Yeah, and I can cover this one. CATS is a Blender plugin originally designed for easily repurposing models from MMD into Unity for VR chat. It has since grown to be a very useful add-on for all kinds of avatar creators. And I've actually prepared a video that goes over the function of the add-on, which we will play for you now. It's short, so pay attention. It goes over the baking of an asset. All right. Hello, Furality. My name is Gillboy, as you should already know, and I am accompanied by...
Lay.
Yeah. And we are coming at you live from the past to... That doesn't make any sense, but to show you the CATS Blender plugin, which is this one right here. To get the CATS Blender plugin, you simply have to go to just simply Google CATS Blender plugin in Google, and you'll find it. You'll find this GitHub page. You want to click on Releases, and you want to scroll down and get the zip file. Make sure you're on Blender 2.8 or 2.9. Anything higher, and CATS might not work yet. It's a work in progress on newer versions of Blender, but 2.8, 2.9, this should work just fine. You go up to Edit, Preferences, you hit Install, you find wherever it's located, just the zip file, don't extract it, and then you just tab this to turn it on, and Blender will crash. And we're back. Sorry about that. Let's get back into it. So once CATS is enabled, which I have to do again, real quick, go to my downloads. And turn it on. Don't crash. Thank you. Okay, so once that's done, you'll open this. Now, for the purposes of this, you don't really want to mess with anything else. This is a great utility for other avatar creation steps. But for now, the only thing we want to focus on is this Bake tab. Make sure you're on the latest version of CATS, or this tab not be available to you. So we're just going to click on the mesh of our object. It's just one, just the body. I'm going to click on Quest to set the quality to Quest, and then I'm just going to go ahead and hit Copy and Bake. And this is going to take a second. And it's done. Okay, so usually, typically, it will create a second version next to it. And this doesn't look the greatest. But I think we can fix that by turning off auto smooth. And yeah, that helped a bit. However, this is the version that has been auto-generated. It is exactly the same in pretty much every way, and if you had textures hooked up to this guy, it would have baked them onto this version because it generates its own UVs, right? It didn't do a great job here, but with some tweaking, it would generate some good stuff. So typically, this is the kind of model you'd get. It's automated. It separates stuff that have shape keys. So I have the face and that part linked to talking, and it makes things change when the character talks. And he has some, happy and angry stuff, and that all still works. It baked all these shape keys down using the UVs, and even stuff like that still works. And I don't think it really reduced it a bit. It reduced it a little, but this is still pretty much original polygons. But yeah, you just take this, you can import it into VRChat, and it will just work. It has exactly the amount of polygons it says it has, at least up close, at 7,662 tries. That's really good, especially for this model. Yeah, it did a bit of messy stuff here, but it'll still work just fine. The only thing that might be a little weird, at least for this model, is stuff like the arms. Yeah, the arms need work. But you can modify how it actually chooses to decimate, and you can pretty much solve that issue. Usually thin stuff like this will get affected if you don't have it set up right. But yeah, other than that, that's all you really need to do if you want to quickly optimize your models. You might need to do a little manual work afterwards, but overall, this is a very fast method to work. And yeah, that was the basic overview of the bake function in Cat's Blender plugin. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the panel. Say goodbye, Clay.
Bye.
What a gem. Okay.
I can't believe you did that.
All right.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, if you need any more help with that, you can ask Gil during the Q&A later. I am personally a Maya user, so he's far more knowledgeable there than I am.
Yeah, and all right. With that out of the way, we can get into a slightly more involved method of optimizing your model, namely being modifying the model by hand to optimize it. And why do we do this, though? Mostly so we have more control over what happens to our assets, and that's very important.
Personally, a method I prefer. I can have more control and have an artist touch over the level of control of the avatar I have. And to define define the topology as a more structured and meaningful way. Automated means tend to just sort of break the model, in my experience. But they do have faster results. I can't deny that. But doing a more manual way can take more time, which allows us to more finely dictate how we want the model to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and indeed. But also keep in mind that when you're jumping in for the first time, there are some things you want to make sure you remember so that you can maintain the functionality of your asset. Reducing willy-nilly without keeping in mind what you need for your model to work properly is a quick way to turn your model into a mess of polygons. So we're going to go over some of the things that you should keep in mind when you start making changes. All right. Let's
go into next week. Yeah. Wow.
All right, and we're back, and we'll be again continuing with a live or semi-live optimization of this model. So something I like to do is this model has already been optimized. So if I bring in that version of the model, our end result, or desired end result, is something like this. You see, clearly some big improvements have been made. But how do we get there? And how do we decide what we're going to do with this? First off, what I like to do is I like to look at places that are high detail on this model that don't necessarily need to be as high detail on the other model. And one of those places that I decided was the arms. There's obviously a lot here. And additionally, the eye, because the eye has a lot in here. And that was mostly because I was modeling this with the expectation that as a desktop model, I can go a little bit higher poly, especially since this model by default is pretty low poly. It gave me the excuse to go a little high poly. But we can't do that with this. So how I typically approach this is I look at round points. Now, we have this loop right here is important because it's like the center loop. But nothing is saying you can't get rid of, say, every other loop along here and then just solve them out. And if you look closely, that's exactly what I did here. I just deleted a few. And you can select loops like this just by holding down Alt and Shift. It'll select the whole loop as far as it can take it. Yep. And this can be time consuming. But this is a better result than what the automatic thing was doing. It's a bit more clean. You know, stuff like that. The hat's kind of a disaster zone. I put a lot of detail into that. Probably didn't need to. And stuff like this. Something you want to make sure you do, which I didn't really do on this side, but is important, is if we enable the skeleton of this model, well, the visibility, you can see where this joins. So really, you want to avoid reducing quality on these loops. And the reason for that is because that's where they bend. And, you know, you don't want to, if you remove, say, all of these loops, right, all the loops where the bend occurs, it may look all right, or it may not. In this case, it doesn't really look that right. So you want to try and avoid removing loops where there are points of rotation.
Or just any place where there's deformation, really.
Yeah, exactly. So anywhere that you don't want to be affected. Additionally, it's not really an example for this model, but for other models, if you have a face that has very special, very precise shape keys on the face, you might want to not mess with that too much, because the face is, it's going to be the part that most people are going to look at. If you can get away with it, try to not reduce the face and like the eyes as much as possible. But everything else should be fair game. Reducing the face can have some issues, especially in Blender, because if you delete the wrong things that are affected by shape keys, it can actually cause your model to explode because it's messing with the index, like this. So you want to be careful of stuff like this. This does not always happen. And that might have been a jump scare for some people. But, stuff like this is easily fixable. Basically what you want to do is just be careful with what you're modifying. Me modifying this face area right here without being on the right shape key or whatever probably would cause that issue. It's completely hit and miss on whether or not your shape keys will break. And, it's not something that's really controllable. But there are ways to fix it. How I fixed it on this model was I transferred the shape keys over using an add-on, which I will link at the end of the. I'll link it now. All right. So this is the add-on. I'm not going to go over the function of this add-on because that's a bit over the scope of this tutorial, but you can download this and get a pretty good result with that. Anyways, back to this. You can see here that we've completely restructured this, and basically, you know, anywhere where there isn't movement is reducible for the most part. For the eyes, I completely removed this. The faces, I selected it, and you can do something like, you can do something as simple as this, selecting it all, and then going to face, triangulate faces, and it will create something like that. And that's going to be less polygons than doing a grid fill, potentially, usually. Or you can do something like just face grid fill, if it lets you. And you'll get something like that. And you can mess with the span and stuff like that. You can also get something like that. So anywhere that you can reduce, you should try to reduce, as long as it's not going to be an issue. For this, I knew I could replace this with a texture, and that would be perfectly fine. The same for this little section here where the visemes are. I completely got rid of that, and I kept a loop here, so I can still control it with a texture. It still works just fine. Yeah. Let's continue on with a slightly more complicated model as a better example.
It's me!
Yes, this is Clay's, an older version of Clay's model he's using currently. He created this in Maya, and you know, there's a bunch of stuff here that can probably be optimized. For example, if he was going to make a version, a really quick optimization would probably be deleting every other one of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. You know, this might get in the way of some dynamic wiggle, but it's such a small change in shape. Probably not going to be terribly noticeable unless they were side by side.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that this is. You can tell where the deformation parts are on the antenna here.
Indeed, you can tell where there is, because this is masterfully created. By the way, you can tell. You can tell where there is some room for reduction. Where there is bending, there is less. There is more loops, for example. That's a good example. I'm only going to be reducing half where I can, because it'll be a good example. Additionally, eyes are a really big thing that you can usually reduce. So, you know, these eyes, you know, just get rid of every other one. And usually this is what I do. I usually just get rid of every other loop where I can. That's like my first wave of optimization. Just reducing loops. And that's why having clean topology is also really important, because it lets you reduce way easier. If you have a bunch of triangles in your model, it's definitely be a lot harder to do. And you're going to have to do a lot of rerouting, and it's not going to be good.
It's always a good start to just start with every second loop, I find, as well.
Indeed. This, and let's go through here, you know. Easy. The inside of the mouth is a bit of isn't terrible, you know. We have this mouthpiece, which is his teeth. Let me increase my clip start a bit so I get closer. This isn't terrible. We can definitely probably leave this how it is. Polygons are pretty good. Most I would do is like delete all of these if you have to. But, you know, stuff like this.
That one really low poly tooth, incredible.
Yeah, make it even more low poly. That's very cute. I like that one. But yeah, basically, if what I remove doesn't really change the shape, then I'll probably remove it. You
Yeah.
know? These teeth being a bit thinner is not consequential. It's such a small detail. You won't see it.
Yeah, one of the most important things is maintaining the silhouette.
Indeed.
Why'd you
Silhouette
bring
is
up the
very
buttons?
important. If you don't have a silhouette anymore, then you've definitely done something wrong. And additionally, you know, this arm can be modified, but I don't really want to move where this is located, you can see. So I'll, you know, go a bit above and below each one, delete every other thing. I'll bring it up to there. Delete it. Keep those there. Go along here. This might be a bit weird, but let's see how it... Oh, no, that's fine. Just do...
Yeah, get rid of that ink on a little bit there. These are all things I've done to my newer version as well.
Indeed. Yeah. If you wanted to do that, you can do that, or just keep it tries. Yeah. Keep that in a quad. Yeah. Might have to do small adjustments like this, but you know, connecting these, just making sure there's no n-gons. You want to avoid n-gons. Typically, when you import into Unity, n-gons are turned into tries anyway. But Blender's algorithm for generating tries is not very good. So you probably want to try to avoid that. Additionally, where the wrist is, there's a bit more. I could probably remove that, actually. I can remove this. I'll probably remove that. Maybe? Yeah. Remove all that. The hand is usually really finicky, but this is made very well, so a bit easier to reduce. Also, excuse the weird bone locations. Since this is from Maya, Maya doesn't do bones like Blender does, so importing this into Blender causes it to look a little weird.
Yeah.
These bones will still work just fine. The way the bones are pointing doesn't really matter. In Blender, that's just how they visualize them. Just go through all this. If there's a loop right over a finger, ignore it. In this case, I think I can get away with it.
Yeah, you can.
For sure.
So I think this is something I've done with another one in the past. I'm pretty sure you can get away with it.
Indeed. And again, this clean topology enables this. So if your model does not have clean topology, you're going to have to rework it a bit before you can manually do this. Otherwise, you're going to have to basically reinvent parts of the model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you think we could reduce?
I could show them the thing I'm just currently working on. That's got some good and bad things that I could show off.
Indeed, yeah. Let's switch to that real quick.
All right, so we're just going to quickly jump into Maya here. So if you don't know what Maya is, which I assume most people probably won't, it's a 3D software that is used prominently in the industry, since I do a lot of industry work. But most of the stuff that we look at should be pretty much the same in terms of back and forth between Blender and Maya. So here I've got a model that I've just been working on. I'm still in the middle of doing my first pass in terms of doing topology. So I'm going to show you some good things and some bad things. So we're just going to jump into quad draw here. Real quick.
Just be DIing your model. Very good.
And tail, removing the tail. So if we jump into this, we can now very easily see all the topology. And you can see it's quite high poly at the front. and surprisingly low poly at the back. Now, this is an error on my part. When I'm retopologizing, I do a lot of exploration to see what I can get away with personally. So here I've tried to keep it low at the back, knowing that the tail will be obscuring most of this location. I should be able to get away with it, but it does mean that I struggle to get enough topology at the front. So basically my solution to this would be I would delete like all these lines here, like this, and then I'd rebuild them. Not like that. My is being very difficult today. And then I would simply put an edge loop in like that. This will break it, but whatever. And then I would just continue on my merry way. Now I've reduced it, but I've also tried to keep as much of the silhouette as I can.
Indeed. And there's a very similar add-on to this type of workflow that he's doing now. It's called ReTopoFlow in Blender. You can get that for free. It's freely available. It'll give you a lot of the functionality that he's currently messing with as well.
Yeah. So as you can see, my model is the sculpt anyway does have quite a few just random edges and stuff. So working with that was very difficult. So just trying to keep the silhouette while maintaining a low poly count has been a bit of a chore, but I find personally it's very worth it in the end. Let me just pull up my heads-up display. Oh, oh no.
Turn off the sculpt.
Yeah. So I turn off that. Okay, there it is. I'm currently at just under 5,000 polys for this, which isn't complete. Another point of area, another area where
You're under 5,000 tries.
Oh, tries. Which one faces?
Yeah.
So another. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Sorry. So this model, as it is right now, would work great in the Quest, and it still will look fantastic as well. So he's very smartly reduced this model to the point where he probably will be able to make a Quest compatible version. Very easily. Very impressive.
I do a lot of stuff like this just because I can, and I like to explore and see what I can get away with. So another thing to note that I find personally isn't great about this model is the fact that my arms I don't think have enough topology on them, so they're quite low. But I'm still cautious about increasing the poly count because I feel like I still might be able to get away with how this looks. But what is it? We're trying to aim for under 10k tries, was it?
Indeed, under 10k tries if you want a model that you can also use as a fallback.
Yeah. But I still have to include the tail and the eyes, which can take some time, and I may increase the poly counts higher than I would like them to. But
something that's important to take away from this is anything that's not going to be visible that is modeled on the original model can most likely be reduced.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you
absolutely. Yeah. So especially on the back here, where it's been reduced. But at this point, it has been reduced to a point where it's probably not good for the model anymore. So you can actually see, while the edges are still hard, that these areas are very flat, versus this area which seems to be acting a bit weird. There you go. So it's all about maintaining the silhouette. And especially if I'm doing anything topology related and I have a sculpt like I do here, I will always have the sculpt active so that I can shrink wrap it basically to the sculpt, my whatever I'm working with.
And shrink wrapping is basically a setting in most 3D modeling software where if you're recreating the mesh of a model, it will make those vertices snap to the surface of the model underneath it that's higher detail.
Yeah.
Right.
The poly tool that I work with in Maya does that by default.
Yes. And if you have
It's quite cool.
retopple flow for Blender, is also its default function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to quickly cover here. I just remembered. Another point to think about when working with topology is not having spirals. So spirals is when an edge loop will go, for example, all the way up and around, starting like here and going all the way up. Now, if you notice, if I can remember the button, if it wants to do it, it doesn't. There's actually a spiral here, which I shouldn't have, but I do. I think it might be because of this area here. But you want to avoid spirals as much as you can because it can really mess with edge flow. So there's one there. That looks alright. I seem to have fixed it.
Well, you are accidentally too good for this panel.
I don't know why I can't. It's not playing nice.
It's all right.
So Maya bullies you a lot. So you better be really good at what you do, or it's gonna bully you.
Or it'll bully you just because it wants to.
Yeah, that too.
All right. One of the last things I wanted to cover is, what if your model is already Quest compatible? The only thing that you need to do is reduce the amount of materials your model is using. For example, my model consists of a total of 5 different materials. He has ones for the eyes, an eye film that goes over the eyes that isn't used for Quest because there's no transparency, body, the defaults, which is basically his default optional parts, and then on his tail, even though I deleted his close here, he has a outfit, which I can also remove. So remove those. But other than that, we have 3 different materials. And usually, Unity wants 1 for the Android version. You can actually fix this by getting the material combiner. That is Twitter. By getting the material combiner, which you can get here. And just search material combiner add-on. You'll find one by Grim Ez. Go to releases. Click on this to download it. Not here because this is more if you're modifying it yourself. Click on this. And then install it the same way that you would install the other one. All right. And once you have that installed, you'll see it right here. Now, Material Combiner may look a little similar to you. Cats has Material Combiner support. So you can access it through Cats once it's here. But let's generate a material list. So let's select everything and hit generate material list. And it will find all of these. We can get rid of stuff that is the same. So for example, it has picked up the body and the defaults multiple times, which doesn't need to happen. So we can turn that off. Right? And then we have that. If we make this bigger, we can see some options. There's quadratic, power of 2, all this. I'm just going to set that to automatic. Size of materials without image, 32, which is the color. And size of gaps between images, this is basically if you want padding between UVs that are on edges. I don't think we need that, so I'm going to set it to keep it at 0. So then we can actually save the atlas. But let's actually do it through Cats, because Cats should do something additional. Right? If we hit Save Atlas 2, we can choose a place to do it. Let's just put it in my, let's put it on my desktop. And let's hit, actually no, let's put it in my documents. Let's hit save. Let's hit create atlas. So this is going to modify the UVs on this model to be combined. And it's basically going to take all those materials, going to section them off in their own corners, and make one big master texture for this entire model. And there are some disadvantages to this. One of them being, obviously, with this option, you're going to have slightly less. You're going to have slightly less materials. Oh, you're going to have slightly less resolution in your materials. If we go into UV editing, you can now see it has combined all of them. And in this case, the model still looks fine. The quality has not suffered greatly because it made an 8K texture. But it will be downsized in Quest. However, in this case, this is good. You can see the eye takes up a lot of space. And that might be desired because the eye is one of the most important parts of your model to stay intact. But otherwise, this is a great way to save your material list. Just combine everything into the same. It works great. All right. Some parts didn't get adjusted, as you can see. And I think that's because these are still on their own, materials. Yeah, they're still on their own materials. So I just missed these parts in the combination. But these are just fine. But yeah, that's a basic overview of material combining and making atlases. Definitely use this. It's a great way to optimize your model if you can afford to lower the resolution of your textures just a bit. It's very good. Go.
Just before we finish up here, I just wanted to quickly jump in. I think a lesser known fact about Quest compatibility and making Quest models is that you need to maintain an identical rig between your Quest and your PC version. So I'm just using my current model that I'm using at the moment, which has a more unique rig. So you're gonna have to look at my bones here. I do apologize. But as you can see, I have two sets of legs on my rig personally, which allows me to get the digigrade legs in here. For future reference, you need to make sure that your rig is identical between the Quest and the PC, and the thing that my rig uses, which it isn't here in Maya, only in Unity, is that these bones here are specifically constrained to these ones, or the other way around, to make them move in a specific way. Constraints do not work with Quest versions. You will have to build your rig specifically so that it can work in Quest as well. So the way I would go about this is I would have a third set of legs, which might be a little bit weird to some people, but it kind of makes sense to me, where I would have a normal set of just plantigrade legs, and then I would have a Quest version of this one that would be weight painted to those legs in particular, so that it could work with Quest. So just to quickly show you what I mean, I would have another set of bones that would start here, go here, and then down here as a third set of legs. If this doesn't quite make sense, do ask me during Q&A, and I will try and be more intelligent about it, I guess. But yes, thank you.
All right. So I know that was a lot of info in a small time period, but we tried to really follow as much as we could in the short time we have for a panel. These panels always have pretty good Q&A sections. I like to teach people, so if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we showed or any questions that you have, feel free to ask, right? You have anything to add?
Cannot believe we're professional.
All right. Is there anything you wanted to say to the people watching at home?
We're professionals.
We are professionals, yes. Did you? Yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys are all having a great Furality so far. I love it a lot because, it's fish themed. But I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it. It's a great time. See your friends, see all that stuff. I can't wait for the dealer's den to open. That's going to be great. Yeah. See if we have any questions.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some questions. Wait. Oh wait, no, those are not questions. Oh no, false alarm.
Oh no.
Apparently the audio wasn't working still. So we just...
Okay, so we have a question from Blue Bois on Twitter. How big do you aim to keep your textures on Quest?
You want to have a resolution anywhere between 1024 by 1024 or 2048 by 2048. You don't want to go any higher than that. And you probably can't get away with going lower than that without having, too much pixelation. That's usually what you have to try and do. Yeah.
Gotcha. We got some more people
And
typing up.
I think, yeah.
Okay, I have a question from Toolbox on Discord. How do you think the VRChat mobile shader is when it comes to emulating PC VR shaders like Poyomi? Is it mostly good at emulating the style, or are there some workarounds needed?
So the Quest shaders, they kind of leave a bit to be desired. I hope in the future they give the shaders some more functionality. But as of right now, there's a basic standard shader, which is like a light version of the standard shader in the desktop. And then there's like a cartoony shader that basically just doesn't have shading. And then I think there's one that has like toony shading. But those are the only ones that really work that well. You can't really do any fancy effects. You can have emission, but it leaves a bit to be desired. That's one of the that's just one of the things you're gonna have to try and get over when you are making your Quest model. You're gonna have to compromise a little bit because you are running this model in this game on what basically is a souped up smartphone. So you have to make some sacrifices here and there to get it to work right.
Got I have a question that might be a follow-up question to what you just asked. Are there any other available shaders for Quest other than the ones given in the SDK?
No, VRChat officially does not support custom shaders or any shaders that are not in the shader list for the Quest.
Okay.
And yeah, if you ever find a way around it, also don't, because they don't like it when you do that. It's against terms of service. So don't, it's better just to use the ones that they come with.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention that is by Sir Cherry. And that's the question asker. Next question from Halvid, 9508. How many meshes is a Quest model actually capable of processing? There has been times where some props have come up like marshmallows for me once I bring them in the game.
So the Quest version of the game, I think it has a hard limit on the amount of skinned meshes allowed. But usually stuff like that, once it gets too high, it will cull stuff out. Like it'll start making things not load. But you can always choose to override that option. Like if you tell the Quest version to load something, if it's not, way over the maximum limits of what it wants, you can still load it in. Like, you just have to go into the person who's going in your menu, click it, and then you should be able to display their model and all of their stuff regardless. I don't know about worlds. I don't do world creation. But for avatars, usually that's fine. You do want to try and keep separate meshes low, though. And I'd recommend like 5 or so, or maybe even something like 3. Like, if you have multiple meshes that use an armature, try and make that just 1. You don't want multiple armature meshes on an avatar. But if you just have something that isn't, using a skeleton, and it's just like a box or whatever, that's fine.
Cool. And we have time for one more question, and for the people listening, even though your question might not be answered live, Gil and Reklaymer, when they can go check out the Q&A section in the Discord and can answer your questions in there. So feel free to keep leaving any questions that you might have for them. So last one for tonight. This is from Ellipop. Do you have suggestions for other cases where you can't use constraints? For example, having multiple arms and legs.
So in that case, there's not really much you can do. VRChat limits what you can use in the game already. The Quest is much more complicated. I bet there would be a way to do it, but the way to do multiple arms and stuff, that evades me as of right now. Yeah, the most you can do is have the arms visible, but you'd have to control. Yeah. What was that?
I have been exploring to see if I can find something that would work, but I haven't had any luck yet. So I guess I'll let people know at some point if I find something.
Yeah. All right. All right. So up above are some contacts. I have more than Clay. He's more of an industry worker, so he has more personal stuff. But you can follow me on my Twitter, Discord. You can also check out my Gumroad. Right now, I have a code. If you use the code Aqua, all of my stuff that is paid at least is 50% off. I don't have much on there right now, but you can also check out my Meridian. I released it for Aqua, and it's completely free, and it's this model essentially. So it comes with some toggles and some additional parts. You might have some fun with it. But yeah, anything you wanted to add, Clay?
Yeah, feel free to follow me on Twitter and add me on Discord if you want to chat. I'm happy to help with as much as I can. Yeah, I do a lot of. I'm very busy. I like to do a lot of work, but I'm always open to talk.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the panel. My voice was a little quiet. I did notice. I'll remedy that for next time, don't worry. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your convention. Maybe you'll see me around. I do like to jump around the instances, so I hope to maybe see you out there in the wild. But yeah, have a great day.
See ya.
Bye.